Hello, everybody. Namaste, 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 namaste. And the lady that I'm sitting with, Ann Tucker, I know that you all know. And if you don't know, then we need to do something about it. Ann is the most fantastic. She's from the US, and she's the most fantastic angel channel with an immensely successful global platform. So please tune into the last deep dialogue that Anne and I had, which you'll find very easily in the library through the YouTube channel. And here she is again. She's very kindly said that she will come back because we had such fun. So
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so fun to be back with you again.
Bless you, darling. Bless you. And hot foot from your annual retreat.
Yes.
It was really successful. So
yeah. Yeah. And I'm just a little bit worse for wear, but loving it.
And so now you'll have a little bit of cooling down from the heat of the retreat, and then back into the extremely developmental platform that you have. All the information. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm privy to this because we were just sharing as a pre-show chat, and Anne was suggesting that she's spending quite a lot of time talking with the mother of creation. Could you perhaps explain to those people who are unfamiliar with what that means? Could you perhaps explain?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's not anything that I think that we have typically expected or heard of. That a lot of times when I say mother of creation, people think I'm talking about Mother Earth or these other ways of understanding divine feminine energy. And I was so far from understanding who she is that I was not open or receptive to her energy for a super long time. And I kept having dream after dream that there was this massive energy coming that was trying to connect with me. And I was scared. I was afraid of it because it was so big. It just was, and it was so outside of, I didn't understand who or what she was. So I had dreams, like a dream that one of my dreams, I'm on a raft in the middle of the ocean with a bunch of people. And I know there's this huge energy coming for me, and it's coming for me. And I tell everybody else, like, save yourselves, run away, and then this energy, and it's feminine. She comes in and she just slowly drifts down and then sits next to me. And so it's just showing me that she's not going to hurt me, that it's, that it's safe. But it took me about a year to finally open up, and then started channeling her. And one day in meditation, it was like I must have just finally gotten comfortable with it. All of a sudden she pops in, and then she didn't want to get out. So she talked to me for like 6 hours. And I didn't understand at first who she was. So the first thing she showed me, my first impression of this being, was she showed me a woman kneeling on a dirt road, a dirt path. And I see Yeshua walking away from her. And Yeshua, in the vision, Yeshua is going to be incarnated. And I can see that she's aware of like what his life plan is going to be and how it's going to end, and the good and the bad and the ugly of all of that. And I can feel her love for him. I can feel her sadness, all the things that you would expect. And I'm thinking in my mind, this must be Mary because this is his mother. And then I realized, wait a minute, this can't be Mary because he's not incarnated yet. Like when he gets to Earth. And then as soon as I had that awareness, my meditation shifts, and I see this being floating out in a universe before there's anything. And I realize this is who I'm seeing. And she is essentially the original being. She says she's one of the primary beingnesses created by God at the beginning of the universe. And she's the embodiment, the beginning of divine feminine energy. And so when God first came into awareness, the sort of the I am, and then the what am I, right? The kind of initial question, what I am, and then what am I? That what am I, that question created separation, created a mirror reflection of God, where God, and please use your own word. God is the word it feels best to me, but please, I respect any word you choose. But God sees in that separation, it creates an externalization of himself, just in the same way that we have reality as an externalization of ourselves. It's a reflection back of God. But the interesting thing is that mirror image, he can see himself, like, who am I? And boom, that thought creates a mirror. But that mirror contains everything that God is, except that it is in reverse. In the same way we look at a mirror and we text up to a mirror and it's backwards, like it's the inverse. So the inverse of God, God is unity. The inverse is all that God is, but in separation. So that question that he had, that what am I, is the magic question that creates separation. And so the mirror also contained the question because it contained everything that God is. So it separates from itself and it creates an inverse of two parts. One is divine masculine and one is divine feminine. And the one that was the feminine is the mother of creation. And that is the being that I've been channeling. And then from her was like the whole story of like how souls were created. And then, it's like a giant layer cake, more like a tiramisu, like lots of layers, layers upon layers. But so I didn't have a concept. I've been calling her mother of creation. And there's so many different sort of offshoots from that energy. There's, as you were talking about, there's so many and many incarnations, I guess we would call them, of divine feminine energy. And many of them are fully realized beings. But the cool perspective that she has, that she's sharing, is really this concept of like how divine feminine energy works at a fundamental, at a universal level, which has been mind blowing. But it's taken me months and months and months to be able to just understand what she's telling me, to synthesize, like, because I didn't know that a being like that existed. When you look at the chapel, the Sistine Chapel, and Michelangelo's picture of like God giving, it's like, there's no woman in there. It's a magic finger touching human. You know what I mean? There's women have been like written out of the picture forever. And, but yeah, apparently she was there from the get-go.
And has always been there, but understandably has been clandestine. Understandably, simply because of we know historically that something needed to take place within the male ego. The difficulty is that, as we know, it's beyond all bounds, and now it is no longer balanced. It is actually seriously in fracture, through the attributes of the male ego and the way that the male ego is creating, in short, control, coercion, and manipulation around the world. And of course, we're now seeing, not that it's, this is the first time that we've seen it, but we're seeing the brutishness, the horror of what that male ego is all about. So it's understandably that she would come through to speak in this way, because a profound healing needs to take place. Yes. I mean, I say healing, I mean a movement back to wholeness.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And living in separation. Yeah, I've often teased through and asked the angels, because I've been working with these angels for now nearly 40 years. They came to me in 87 as these huge orbs of light on glass screen. I mean, 40 or 50 feet, these huge orbs. And I heard this voice that I remember from my childhood, because I had a very hypersensitive childhood, being in touch with multidimensional universe. But there was always this being here, this beam of light or orb, and another being here. This was my guardian angel, and this was Michael. So I remember this voice from when I was a child. And obviously it's an interpretation of electromagnetic impulse that's moving through from the divine. But it was always this extraordinary voice. So it's the same voice that I heard when I met the angels. However, I remember asking them, why is there duality? Because they kept referring to this as being the only planet of choice in many of the other planets. Now, I don't know whether that's true, but why would I argue with that? Because I'm being given through sacred counsel.
Yeah.
And they said, well, do you not see that the divine, in the wisdom of the divine, and they refer to it as the divine Mother, Father, God source. So there's expression of both elements within our understanding of our humanity, the male and the female. The reason why was to divide into two for the joy of becoming one again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that is the answer to that initial question from God is, what am I? And then in order to do that, you have to separate out fully, learn. It's like the way I think about it is that, so if that first question created the concept of separation, where God created a mirror, which is God, all that God is, but separated from himself, and then that had separation in it, then that would then continue to separate and separate and separate. I tend to look at all my answers from the human body. So I interpret this like we always say, go back to the breath. Well, if you look at the beginning of the breath, we have the trachea, which is unity, which is one. And then it separates into the two halves, the two lungs. And then those separate into tiny little branches, the little bronchioles, until it gets so fine that it can't separate anymore, right? Until these tiny, tiny little vessels where the air can come in. And that separation, it's like, if you want to learn, if God's question was, what am I? And God wants to learn about himself, herself, itself. I use he, but then the idea that it's like when you want to cook a vegetable, if you chop it up in tiny pieces, it cooks faster because it has more surface area. So it would make sense that this would be how God consciousness would grow, is that it would break itself apart into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. And then each piece gets to go out and have an experience and then turn around and then eventually integrate back into the one. And just like you're saying, and I think in that process, and so we are all like that end a little bit, you know what I mean? We are those souls at the end of the branch that are out there, like having our day, having our life, and then eventually return. And now I think where we are, is that we are at the end of a very long inhale, which has been the expression of the masculine. And it is now turning around and starting to relax back into the parasympathetic system, back into the feminine. And that is the process of reintegrating all those pieces, all those experiences that we've denied or repressed, bringing them all back in for learning, you know. And I think that's why she says she's come back now. She says, you've turned around from the biggest extent of the inhale, as much inhale as we could possibly do. We've finally turned around. We're coming back to center. She says, now you will remember me, which I just loved. Yeah.
That's beautiful. All those elements are really, really, really beautiful. And I love the way that you speak of the breath, because the breath, I've been a student of breath for many, many years, being a voice coach, obviously the first thing I do, you know, and I've been a voice coach for 45 years. Yeah, I'm much older than I look. And, you know, I was, as a young actor, I was steeped in Shakespeare and the classics, and then became known as, hence my title, Master of Voice, became known as a voice coach who works specifically with Shakespeare or, you know, his contemporaries, because they're difficult to speak. And so I make it easier for people, you know, how to make borrowed words credible, make ancient wisdom palatable for modern daily life. And the reason why I'm just sort of not polarizing, but just sort of isolating this condition, because going back to the breath, is that up until the early part of the 17th century, there was this complete belief in what medievalism called the anima mundi, the animating principle of the universe, which was completely feminine. The animus is male, the anima is feminine. Yeah. And so, in other words, they believed, and this was taught in medieval university, so they would, as it were, contemplate or meditate with the breath. And if they felt weak, if their humors were disturbed, that was a way of talking about what we would refer to as our energy centers or our chakras being out of balance and so on and so forth, or just simply not being in harmony physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. They would go into nature. And they would go into nature and they would participate, so as groups of people, praise the divine and pray. And they would automatically feel better, often by dancing around a sacred spring or a statue of Mary or a pagan shrine or an earth node, etc., etc. And they would feel informed, they would feel better. And so they knew that they were healed by the anima mundi, because it says at the beginning of Genesis, and God breathed into the nostrils of man, and man became a living soul. And so breath, or what we refer to as pranayama, is absolutely quintessential, and that is the anima mundi. But at the beginning of the 17th century, along came Isaac Newton, who refuted all of that and said, no. The earth is merely a lump of matter hurtling through space. And totally withdrew and desacralized Mother Nature.
Wow.
It was another act to the male ego, maybe for propitious means in terms of the development of modern science. But it's, you know, completely out of bounds, obviously, because we've just abused our planet. And now we're recognizing that we need to make reparation, that we need to get on our knees and be sacred with her, you know, in loving loving, joyous ways of really respecting and have obeisance for her. So there's an interconnectivity of now is the time. I've been serving the divine feminine all my years, and most of the major clients, the world leaders, the change makers, the influencers that come to me, I'm the man who gave Margaret Thatcher her voice, going all the way back to 1980. Most of the people who have come have been women.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's not because I made a choice. It's just it's part of the unfolding nature of my destiny. And it always comes from left field. I don't plan it, but suddenly the telephone rings or an email comes in. Like the other day, I normally go to Egypt in December. I go twice a year, April and December, and run a retreat and then stay on and, get lost in the field and discover all sorts of amazing things, because the unseen ones come and speak to me in the silence of the desert. And do you think I could actually get people enrolled for this December retreat? And then last week, a major production company came to me and said, we want you to make a documentary, to be part of making a documentary about Diana, Princess of Wales, with whom I worked for the last 2, things like that.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to do is to extol the virtue of the divine feminine and bring all of the wisdoms that we're being taught, going back into the origin of creation and the way to make this practicalized, to heal the neuroses of separation so that we can be in the glory of diversity and not worry about the fact that it's separate. The big issue I find, and I want to know what you feel, which is why I'm leading to this, the big issue that I find is that people become pregnant with suffering. And they find it difficult to release themselves from suffering.
Yeah.
Because it's so tumultuous, because we're so scarred by it, because we're so indented by it, so to speak. And forgetting the divine aspect of alchemy, that over there is the bliss body while you're in the pain body. So you can always start imagining how to shift countenance. I wonder how you approached it, in terms of the resolution.
Oh, yeah. And I think you might know that I've been on a healing journey myself. Really ever since I awakened decades ago, that it's been a constant practice of mine to clear my field, to clear my energy, to harmonize and integrate all parts of myself. And it's all still ongoing. I'm not done. Otherwise I'd be dead. I'd be up there with God if I was done. So I got more to do. But I think the key is when we get really stuck in our wounding, and this is, I think, the shift that is really tough for us to make, is that deep down, we have a knowledge of who we are. Like, we realize that we are love. We realize that we are God. And we have this deep understanding that we came to earth, that we are a light being, that we have love in our hearts, and we get here and then something horrible happens to us. And we feel, and I think there's a sense of cognitive dissonance that happens, where there's that inner part of us that says, how could this have happened? And there's a part of us that doesn't believe it's true. And that part of us just keeps saying, like, how could this have happened? How could this have happened? Like, did this even happen? So there's a part of us that just needs to be witnessed, that needs someone to turn around and say to us, yeah, it happened. And not only did it happen, it was worse than you are remembering. It was really bad. Like, it was that bad. And then add some sprinkles on top. It was bad, And there's something about that where it's like, it allows the body to, it like releases the nervous system. And it is the power of being witnessed. And we can witness ourselves. Is that yes, the angels, that is one of their biggest healing gifts, is that they will witness us. They will witness our growth. They'll witness our pain, so that we can feel the truth of it and we can let it go. And but we can also do it for ourselves, is that by just going back and the things that we're trying, whatever it is in our lives that we are trying so hard not to feel, like the things that we're trying to push away, that we want to deny, that we wish never happened. And that could be things that happened to us or things that we did. Either way, it's trauma. It's still trauma. And whatever it is that we wish didn't happen, then we need to go back to those moments and be the witness to our own pain, and to reassure ourselves, yeah, it happened. And your feelings are valid. Your pain is real. It really happened. And when that happens, it unlocks the nervous system, allows the healing to start to happen. And that seems, in all the healing work that I've done, it seems like that is the moment that people are waiting for.
Beautiful, beautiful. So what you're doing on that level is bringing together the entire rapid fire development of psychotherapy from the 60s, from the, you know, the post-war years, post-Second World War years, into the development of the New Age, into the development of the harmonization that we're all teaching through all the varying therapeutic methods or modes or directions of
Yeah.
coming back into wholeness.
Yeah. And there's so many amazing healers out there now. Like there's not one method, you know, it really is like the key is you can get there any way you get there, as long as you get there is my theory. And it is that idea. But I think that the moment that people need, and then in terms of the integration that happens and the support that where you're held as you're going through that experience of integrating those moments, that's going to be dependent on which practice, which practitioner. But the key moment that needs to happen is that acknowledgement, the witnessing, the finally, because it shifts us from our sympathetic to our parasympathetic nervous system, from the inhale to the exhale. Like I feel like the whole world right now is stuck at the peak of this inhale. And you know how it is when you've inhaled as far as you can, and they're like, hold it, hold it a minute longer. It's like our economy, like hold it a little longer. Like don't go through don't exhale. And it's when you do that, it's just the only thing you can do is crash,
Well, talking of that on a collective level, I believe something very extraordinary happened in 97 when Diana passed, because we saw that wave of Shakti move through the world. And the statistics were just sort of outrageous, that 2/3 of the world's population wept at her passing.
Wow.
So it seems to me that with that awareness, and that's one of the reasons why I wrote the books, I wanted to explore what all of those archetypal energies were all about. What was that force that made everybody
yeah,
and then weep in the way that people wept all over the planet?
That's amazing. I did not know that. And I love that, because that any kind of crying is healing. You know what I mean? Like it's letting that exhale come out. And like what an amazing soul purpose for her to be able to bring that kind of healing through her passing. That's incredible. Yeah.
I mean, the statistics go on, which I've included in the book. For example, the weekend of her passing and the early part of the week in the United States and the United Kingdom, the paper that newspapers were printed on was in short supply because there were so many bulletins that were being literally. In the United Kingdom, floristry, you go to a florist to get your flowers, were just not knowing what to do because so many people were buying flowers that they wanted to, use as a ritual to Diana. And of course, we remember those photographs of Kensington Palace, or indeed the route after the funeral in Westminster Abbey, the route between London and Northamptonshire, where her family estate was, the Spencer family estate, Althorp. That there were flowers all the way, anyway, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Things like this. But also the nature of her passing, because where she passed was the site, the Ponte al Mar tunnel, was the site of the Temple of Diana in Roman times.
Oh my gosh, are you serious? That's insane. I had no idea.
And that's just the beginning. There is much more, which I include in the book to try and provide an understanding, because we see her as being, the conspiracy theory of the fact that she was got rid of. I don't really go near that, because it was obvious that some perpetration took place, which was horrific and evil and negative, and et cetera, et cetera. We know about that stuff. But what I wanted to do was to also show that there was a reason for her passing at that time. As much as we lament her passing, the point is that she went to release that wave of Shakti. And it seems that, going back to what we were sharing before we came into this conversation, before we sort of switched that with all of the visitation that I'm perceiving in the Blue Lady and the Blue Sisterhood, that there's going to be a wave of blue that is going to be moving across our planet at the beginning of next year, which they describe as being the force of the divine feminine. in the Eastern school, the far Eastern school of Hinduism and Buddhism, is the force of Shakti. So it's going to be a similar, but it's going to be a wave of peace and not a shock wave.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That is wonderful. Do you know, it brought to me as you were talking about the wave when Diana passed, is that when my own father, when my stepdad passed, and I had grief afterwards. And then I understood from the angels that they said that they said that grief is a gift, and that it doesn't come to everyone, that it's designated by the person who passes, like who gets to receive the gift of the grief. And because the grief comes in and it expands you, that it is such a heavy, heavy feeling that it's like filling up a sock with a bunch of rocks, and it stretches the sock out, it stretches our energy body out in a way that we expand. Because it does, like emotions, good or bad, doesn't matter. It's emotions, and we feel it so deeply. It enlarges us, and then as that passes, we can fill that space in with love. So it's a gift. It's an amazing gift. And so think about that as she's leaving and using grief to bring in more love. I think that is amazing, just amazing. Yeah, but super cool that you're talking about another wave of energy coming. There's some really interesting astrological times coming up and the angels are not good with time. Like I shouldn't say that they're not good at time, but they're like, they live outside of time. And so time is like not a thing really. They've given me time a couple times, but it's been on small scale, not big scale. And but astrologically, there's a hot point in February of 2026. You may know this already. And then like mid-year of 2026. So I've got my eye on those moments, waiting to see what happens. But I am very, very hopeful that we've got some incredible shifts coming for us.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Those of us that can experience, firstly, the contractual agreements of sorting out our karma and moving into the wisdoms that you've just been sharing, that, for example, if we go to a pinnacle point of extreme stress, namely grief. Are you with me? Are you there? Are you frozen? Oh dear, I have a frozen screen. I wonder if that means that... Don't know whether you can hear me.
Oh,
you're back. Okay.
Yeah.
Where was I? Yeah. That we're seeing that all of the work that we've been doing to achieve sustainable joy, because there is obviously something hybrid taking place within so many of we Homo sapien, where we're beginning to feel uplifted. We're beginning to feel a transmission from divine ones, such as the angels, and for a lot of people, the ascended masters and mistresses. You're dealing with a conglomerate in terms of the divine Mother, Father, God Source, but particularly through the perspective of the divine Mother. I'm doing the same thing. So we're beginning to see ways of being able to live the sustainability of joy. I mean, the angels continuously say to me, feeling is the language of the soul.
Yes.
And this is why we want you to become emotionally intelligent, which of course is a very different paradigm from that we were educated, socialized, and conditioned by, which is all with the duality of the two hemispheres. Shall I, shan't I, will I, won't I? I don't know, I'm lost. Doing, as opposed to being, of utilizing this as a point of discernment, but not getting caught up in it. Because after all, if we drop lower into our bodies, into the heart has this beautiful, not duality, imbalance, but this oneness, which is the spectrum that leads us right into the middle of the torus.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love that with the being in the head, how because I used to be in the corporate world and so was very versed and worked in companies that were really focused on head-based decision making and thought processes, and that's all that was valued was head. But in the same moment that they would be statisticking and thinking and mathing everything out, in the same moment they would say, but no plan survives contact with reality. So right baked into it was the understanding that they were going to go through this whole exercise of thinking, and then it wasn't going to matter. that it wasn't the way, but they would just keep doing it. They just keep doing it, which is so crazy. Yeah. And I have shifted in my own life, and it's been really almost a decade now where I do my best as much as possible to try to be guided entirely by my heart. And I do that even in my work and everything and the way I'm doing it now, and tell me if this sounds familiar to you, is I try to be aware that when I'm making a choice, if I'm moving to try to get away from something, I'm in fear. If I'm trying to prevent something from happening, if I'm saying, well, I don't want this to happen, so I better not do that, that's fear. But if I'm saying I would like this to happen, then I'm in love, I'm in joy. So I'm always trying to go into my heart and say, what would I like to create? Is this still fun? Is this still joyful? Right. And I look at, like, I go through my work, like every 6 months to a year, I go through my work and I look at every single thing I'm doing. And I say, does this still bring me joy? Is this still fun? And I've ended some things that, like, from a head place, you would say, oh, you're crazy for ending that, like shutting down my Facebook group. Everybody is, what are you talking about? It's a huge Facebook group. And it was like, no joy. It's not joyful anymore. We're going to do something different that's more joyful. And it just, so it was, but I've been trying to do that in every single way. And it makes a huge difference. Makes a huge difference. And it turns out that those are my best choices.
Yeah. Because they're divinely reasoned, they're divinely dispensed. Absolutely. Of going into all of the superlatives: joy, bliss, freedom, adventure, wonder, awe, elevation, upliftment, keep going. And the fact that, we're, as a result of the trauma, which I was talking about just now, when Isaac Newton said that the earth is merely a lump of matter hurtling through space. And literally, it was outlawed. The anima mundi was outlawed. So it was no longer taught in medieval university. Now, what's interesting is you see that when we breathe in, as we all know, when we're exercised in breath, the automatic thing is not to lift, but to widen. So the rib cage expands. If you see anybody who's out of breath, there's always, the lung sacs are being inflated, but it's always about wide, deep, not.
Yeah.
And if we withdrew from the anima mundi, which is that horizontal plane of the divine feminine, this being what they call the axis mundi, the male of the cerebrum, if we withdrew from that, then all we do is to breathe in this lifting of the chest and stay within the cerebrum.
Yeah.
I feel that something happened, as you were saying, that was really important during that wave of Shakti, that many did weep, but I don't feel that we wept for the divine feminine. I feel that we wept for ourselves.
Yes, that it unlocked that.
Really important to grieve on that level. But there's another weeping that needs to take place. And I feel that that's where the next wave will come in, where we begin to see ourselves as these really expansive, multi-perceptual beings that aren't just caught up in these small aspects of our consciousness, to do with grief, to do with sorrow, to do with pain, to do with suffering, to do with. Although there's nothing wrong with that. It's not that I'm doubting that or judging that. It's just that we need to find, when we look at the world, for example, apropos what you were just saying about the cerebral consciousness, the rise of literacy during the 18th century, the development of commercialization, moving into industrialization, and now into capitalization. But then we look into some of the teaching that's going on in some of the premier educational establishments, what you would refer to as the Ivy League establishments, which are parallelized here with the leading establishments like Oxford and Cambridge and the leading universities, where you have groups of young people who don't know how to think clearly, who are actually following false narratives because their hearts are not engaged in the intelligence of whatever they have been, that has been shared with them. I saw this happening 20 years ago, which is why I left theatre and education, because I was teaching young actors for 35 years up to that point. Then I left it behind because I saw woke coming in, and it tried to destroy me because I was all about liberation and adventure. Look, you have deep in your heart a wonderful magician that wants to take you into the crystal cave. So let's go there. No, this was all being rejected by my students. So I saw that they were being brainwashed by Marxist philosophy, and that what I needed to do was to leave that arena to gather my own sustenance, because obviously it was traumatic leaving. It was the zenith of a career that I'd worked for years and years and years and years. And I knew I would miss it. But at the same time, the angels were saying, unfurl your wings and come out of the spiritual closet. It's time for you to do this, etc., etc. It's been extraordinary. I mean, as you said earlier, our journey goes on. It is persistent, that we are unpicking and interrogating the deeper parts of our shadow consciousness so that we can lift it all into the light. It just goes on and on and on and on. But it does get easier.
Oh, so much. And I would say, like, one of the interesting things that's happened for me just in the last year is I came to the conclusion of some threads in my life that were some of the major threads of my life, like that. And it was, what was amazing about it is that these are themes that were, both of them actually were from birth, and one was a heal to the masculine, one was a heal to the feminine, and they were embedded in my birth wound. And they even started even pre-birth in the womb in utero. And I was able to trace these back. But the thing is I had been working on these for decades. I had been, and they would just be like this healing spiral. I would be back again and back again and back again. Another perspective, another facet, another layer. And I didn't see necessarily, I could see the connections between some of the pieces. I didn't see the full story yet, not until just this last year, when I finally I saw the connection, and I saw some of the threads of how this first idea was permeated across all of these things. And it was a mind blower. It was really cool. And when I realized it, I healed my dairy and gluten issues. So now I can have ice cream and pizza. So it does get better and better. But it was amazing. I had a very clear dream showing me that was the wound and it was amazing. The dream was the dream had 3 parts. I see the first part where I see myself. I'm on the floor in the kitchen. I can see my mom. I'm clearly an infant. And my heart is racing. I have a fire inside my body. My body feels like it's on fire. And I'm clearly very ill. And my mind says, well, at least they'll pay attention to me now. It says it in my head. And and so then the dream shifts, and I went and confirmed with my mom. And sure enough, 6 months old, I had a terrible case of chickenpox. And my mom and dad were separating when I was born. My mom had me and my brother. She was torn very thin. Like there just wasn't a lot of people around to pay attention to me. And it's by no fault. It's just, that's the circumstances of my birth. And of course I would have chosen that. So that's the first scene, as I see myself, and I have so much fire. It almost wakes me up out of the dream, but I go back in. And then it shifts the scene to, I see a little girl who's probably 3, 4, maybe at the most 5 years old, probably 3 to 4. And I see her in a room. There's a sliding glass door. She opens the door, and I am again sitting on the floor in this dream. And I see a cat come in, and the cat symbolizes the issues with my gut. And related to, like, I couldn't have dairy, couldn't have gluten, had all these things I couldn't do. And I call the cat over with my hand. You know how you do that with fingernails on the thing? I'm calling the cat to me. And so I'm calling over issues because of what I thought if I want them to pay attention to me, make myself sick, right? Because that worked when I was 6 months old. Here I am at 3, 5, wanting attention. I'm going to call in an illness. I'm going to bring in issues. But I'm also a hands-on healer. So for me, my hand in dreams symbolizes healing. So I'm calling it over. As soon as the cat touches my hand in the dream, the cat dies immediately, showing me I have now healed this issue. And then, because of just the stuff I had learned previously, all the dots I just connected, next scene, it shifts, and my guide is handing me an ice cream cone, which is dairy and gluten. I woke up a very happy person. But isn't that amazing? I mean, it was so clear in the dream, like, this is how this unfolded. And it was all tied back, Yeah, amazing.
And just as you describe it, just as it can be, meaning the level of clarity. And I feel, you see, that this is why we're blessed with the chronology, that we're blessed with,
Yes.
that we're blessed with these years, because we know that in the density of weight, space, and time, and in the complexity of duality, these can be, like walking through mud at times, and we're still, like we suddenly hit thickets full of thorns, and blah, 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 high mountains and deep ravines, that as a result of the muscularization of all that you describe, we begin to see, just to draw the parallel with what you were sharing with us at the beginning, that we begin to see where all the primary separations took place, so that we then can find where the golden means are, or the golden mean is, of all the varying themes. You know how when we start working in basic healing of suffering, that everybody is so endorsed by their story.
Yeah.
And we're so endorsed by telling the story, because it becomes a drama, because we love stories, that we forget to hover over the story to see what the themes are. And then when we have the themes, we have the karma. And when we have the karma, then we have big healing going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we move back into the oneness of the I am presence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hearing all of this, everybody. And then, of course, as we share, we're also witnessing, as we all are, something very remarkable that is taking place. The third major comet that's actually disturbed, I use the word advisedly, but is sort of disturbed, because disturbance can be an awakening, the planetary consciousness and all of our neighbors for the first time in 500 years.
Yeah.
And this is the third comet, but this is different from all the other comets. Now, I know that there are many people saying, but it's not a comet. With using the word comet, because actually the word comet means a celestial messenger.
Oh, isn't that nice?
So, wherever we go with that definition, that there is this celestial messenger above our heads. And it seems to me that, it's interesting, it's called 3-Eye Atlas, which of course we know synchronistically it's called because of the space station in Chile, where it was discovered, which is called Atlas. But isn't it interesting that it is an atlas for our higher ideals, because it's responding to us in a way that the other two comets didn't. So there's an intelligence within it that is. So I'm just opening up the field of discussion around 3-Eye Atlas. What have the angels said to you about 3-Eye Atlas?
Yeah, so they came through and said that they were clear. They said there's no living being. There's not it's not like a spaceship. There's a lot of people who were like, it's a ship, and they're like, no, it's there's no living beings on it. But they said it is in fact conscious itself, just like you were saying, it is conscious. But there wasn't like other beings inside of it. And that was the first thing that they said multiple times to like clarify, yes, this is really what we mean. There's no beings inside of it. But they said that it is in communication, as a being in communication with Mother Earth, which was really cool. And that one of the functions or gifts that it would give us was the idea that we are, and the Earth is that we are unaccustomed to, like, we have a certain set of expectations about life and about what life is, and about the universe and reality. Like we have been living in a certain box, and that box, we tend to expect more of what's happened. We kind of create that into the future. And it's time, as we are going through the shift of consciousness, to start opening up to things that have never existed before. There are going to be people who are atheists that suddenly see angels walking down the street, amazing things and miracles that can happen. And we need to start opening up our awareness. And because it is a true thing that if we are not looking for it, there could be something amazing that happens and we won't see it because we are not looking for it. Like if you've ever bought a car, and before you bought the car, you never saw that car. But then the minute you decide to buy one, you see them everywhere. And the truth is they were always there. They just never filtered into your perception because you weren't looking for them. So we need, as if we're expecting a major shift, a major change in our consciousness, we have to start stretching our consciousness and start opening up to things are not what we've expected. And Three-Eye Atlas, the metaphor that I had for trying to understand it, it would be like back when I was a little kid. I had my mom and my stepdad got married. There was a blended family. I had all these older siblings, like 10 plus years older. So I went to one of their graduations from high school, and I was just a little kid. And everybody's there, and they're wearing their robes, and it's pomp and it's circumstance and it's all that stuff, right? Pomp and circumstance. And then into that mix, a streaker ran across the field, like a naked guy goes running across the field, and my little 8-year-old eyes are this big, like, oh my gosh, that's a streaker. And the biggest thing, it shocked me into the realization that adults can misbehave too. And it was so outside of my expectation. And I think Three-Eye Atlas is the streaker of our universe, to say, here's something you did not expect. And they've said that that the soul of Earth has been in a state of separation herself. In the same way we say loneliness is the plague of humanity. Well, we are related to Earth. We're like her neurons. She's lonely. And I think it's just from having been, like, maybe she's not able to connect with, or doesn't perceive the other planets in the universe. She's a perception of being alone. Into that reality, as it's been for the longest time, in comes the streaker. So she's all of a sudden, oh my gosh, what is that? I'm not alone. There's something else here. So that's my understanding. So an opening effect, the idea of stretching our consciousness, opening us up to things, to perceiving things that we were not able to perceive before, just kind of waking us up out of our sleepy state. That's my understanding. How about you?
Well, I concur, all of that and the above. Absolutely. As I started off saying, that Atlas is an interesting word that is being used, because the resonances are that it is an atlas of our higher ideals, therefore an atlas of our spiritual technology. And it's come as a reminder, it's come to disturb, it's come to startle, it's come to surprise, it's come to shake us gently.
Yes.
Because it is evidently beneficent. It is not alien technology that suddenly moves us into the suspicious narrative of Star Wars.
Right. Yeah.
If it were, it would have done something.
Yeah.
Through perihelion, so it's been closest to the sun, and it used its experience in relationship or in association with the sun to gather force.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Its intelligence was actually fed by our solar deity.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I feel that it's a generator of some force, a generator, I lose the term very, very generally, to produce a higher voltage for our spiritual technology. All of these things that you and I are defining, and all of the associations that in this limited amount of time that we have, we're not necessarily mentioning, but we know that by the leading themes that we're using, we're detonating all of those possibilities, all of those resonances. It's all being fed. So along those lines, I mean, there have been thus far, like you, I transmit once a week, where I sit in front of camera and speak. And they ask me to keep my eyes open so that they can channel light through my eyes as well as through my voice. And to this week will be the third time that they've asked me to consider the extended intelligence of AI. I don't quite know what's going to come out, of course. But, they're giving me this brief. And what's interesting is that this afternoon I had a client in the southwest of the US, in New Mexico, in Santa Fe. And she was introducing me to, which I didn't, well, actually I did know, but I'd sort of unremembered. It was sort of stashed in one of those filing cabinets back over here in my consciousness, of the fact that the Hopi have a prophecy that a blue star and a blue light will come, which will be the beginning of the fifth world.
Wow.
And that the world will reach a point where it is so fractured, that humans will be so fractured, that there will be a gift, a celestial gift. They speak of it as the blue kachina will come.
Oh, I've heard of that. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a blue star, blue light. I wonder. There's that. It's a fascinating prophecy. If you've ever heard the whole thing, and I don't know it well myself, but there's several pieces of it, and all the stuff that's like earlier. It's all happened. It's
Yeah,
all happened. It's
exactly,
amazing.
exactly, exactly. And of course, we know that they're very remarkable. The Hopi,
Yeah.
the Zuni, the Navajo, and the Tewa tribes, and they all call themselves the Anasazi. So although they're individuated in tribal culture
Yeah.
to do with wherever native region they lived in, or still living in, and the way that they experience their own unique culture, that actually they're all gathered under this umbrella. Anasazi mean they who came from the skies.
So cool. So cool.
So it's all of these wonderful stories, narratives, or prophecies are now beginning to come home to rest, aren't they?
Yeah.
So that they're beginning, oh, I remember hearing that many years ago, because I personally trained with a Native American shaman in Taos for nearly 3 years,
Oh,
where I
wonderful.
didn't live there for 3 years, but I would go and come back and go and come back because I was working in British theatre here. And he was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. The
Wow.
way that he was, I mean, he was very much a magi. He was a
Yeah.
wisdom keeper, but also a sound shaman and a multi-talented magician. I saw him create rain. I saw him create sun. I
Wow.
saw him create light through sound in a completely darkened kiva, pitch black. And
Wow.
suddenly he planted and there was light. And I said, how did you do that? And he told me, but he said, I'll teach you, but he never did. So
Ah,
it's trying to make sense of how did those priests paint the tombs in Egypt?
yeah. Oh,
Because they didn't have
interesting.
electricity. So they chanted and the whole place lit up. So they were actually able to see a way of telling the stories through the hieroglyphics, or indeed through all of the extraordinary paintings, so to speak, the friezes. Um,
Wow.
just amazing. Anyway, so all of those extraordinary prophecies are becoming relevant to us today.
Yeah.
So as you smile and laugh and lighten some of the heaviness that's going on in the world, as I similarly do, although I'm also fascinated by and have a role in going into war-torn areas for the UN to
Mm,
conduct workshops for aid workers, that we're all about the alleviation of what that level of suffering is all about, and particularly by understanding from an archetypal point of view why it should be taking place, why it is taking place. However, so AI obviously has, I beg your pardon, 3i obviously has the most extraordinary repercussion, and the story hasn't completed itself.
yeah.
It's going to be with us until January of next year. And then we're going to see all these other astrological points of advantage coming in.
Yeah.
I know that your work at the moment is very condensed, so to speak. Condensed maybe is not the right word, but concentrated
Yeah.
on the substance of the mother of creation.
Yeah.
Where do you feel you will be in all of that processing in March and April of next year?
I'm trying to put it into a book, and which is a process for me. I'm not one of those. Some people write and it just flows out like just easy. And for me, it's like it takes me time. I'm a slow writer, and but I feel like I've got a tiger by the tail. Like I'm so in love with everything that she's telling me, and but I have to take it in and understand it well enough to be able to then share it. Like how do you really master something is you try to teach it, and that synthesizing process, because some of it does break through. Like I don't have any Velcro for it to stick to in my head. A lot of it is new concepts that are new to me. And maybe they exist out there, because I have not been a student of religion. I was not raised in a religious context. So maybe some of this stuff has been said before, but I sure haven't heard it. So for me, it's taking me time, but I am hoping that I will, I'm spending a lot of time with, like, my free time now is I'm going to be trying to write this book. And although I'm going on a trip with my kids this week, so I'm going to take a little holiday with my kids, which I'm super excited about, and then I'll come back and I'll work on my book. But yeah, so I'm hoping, and I'm probably going to self-publish it because I would like to get it out as quick as I can, just because it's so much faster when you self-publish. So, and I feel urgency around trying to get it out. I want to be able to start talking about these concepts with people and sharing it, and then seeing where people take it, where they add their 2 cents, and it's going to be, I feel like I would like to introduce all these concepts to the discourse that we're having in our spiritual circles, because I feel like it's important. So so this is my focus, and I'm hoping to get it done, by maybe spring of this upcoming, because I have to go through I'm not even done writing yet. And then I have to edit and all that kind of stuff and fix my grammar, my spelling. So,
but once I feel the conviction of it, and conviction is a force multiplier, but once you start, it's going to be different from the past when you were writing.
Oh gosh, yes.
It's going to flow so much more easily, because we know that if there's one element within the congress, as it were, of the divine feminine, that we all need to learn its flow. Yes. And the man has always been about force.
Yeah, you're so right.
Striving rather than thriving. And, I personally celebrate, but, I'll be very public about this in this particular forum in conversation with you. I'm so glad that you're not going to a publishing house.
Oh, thank you.
They're all based on patriarchal paradigms.
Yeah.
And the more we unplug from that, the more we move into the celebration of our own initiation.
Yeah.
Or we are in service to these archetypal elements that I believe are trying to pour through us.
Yeah, you're right. It is sort of eating our own dog food. Let's do it the way that is going to embody these energies. And it's really interesting. You talk about in not struggling in the writing process. And just this morning, I was sitting down because at my retreat, some amazing messages came through that will fit beautifully in the book. And I was trying to synthesize those and sitting down, and I went back and I listened to the recording, and I realized it was perfect. Like the recording was and I just literally cut and paste. I was like, oh, there you go. Like it was, I couldn't have said it better. So that was flow. I texted my Wendy right away. I'm like, guess what? I was probably just put it in there. She's like, yay. So I'm totally open to doing more of that. So, but up until now, it's been a lot of synthesizing. So but that was a fun moment, because it's so much better than what I would have written. So thrilling, totally thrilling.
Yeah. So therefore, there's a token for us through your story of recognizing that when we appraise you, when we appreciate you, we see how all of the work that the angels are interplaying with you for, through, and about, that we're seeing the expansion in your own humanity into moving away from just 5 senses or 6 senses into a multi-perceptual field.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And therefore, you see, I feel that what you and I are doing, and others like us, is that we're revivifying the nature of what divine service is really all about, from that point of view of belief, faith, and trust in the sacred, that belief, faith, and trust in the divine. Because we know that status of the divine servant has been adulterated by the martyr complex in relation to the boss, the patriarchy, the king, the whatever. And that what we're doing is we're reconvening and redefining what that status is all about, because it's actually about not us, but the way that the divine voices move through us.
Yeah.
Because, I had problems with learning as a child. So I didn't read until I was about 13. Because I'm synesthetic and dyslexic.
Oh, wow.
So the very fact that I've written 6 books or whatever it is, I find really,
amazing. Yes, exactly. Congratulations on that one.
I have a big personality, and everybody says, "Oh, you're so accomplished." But actually, there's a little boy inside that is still processing all of this. And I remember when I came to write the book about Diana, my 2 years with Diana.
Yeah.
But I had a confidential relationship with her. You know, we had terms that we agreed to. And the reason why is that she was part of such a rich circus of activity, not just her interaction with the British royal family, but the circus of the paparazzi. And I
Oh,
said, you know, I feel we got on like a house on fire from the word go, but I feel that if I'm to serve you, this needs to be completely confidential and completely private. So I want you to come to me. I won't come to Kensington Palace. And the person who introduced us, she will pay the fees. So we don't need to go through anything to do with the royal household. And that's the way that it was. So it was secret. And that became a game, and that was fun because
yeah.
it meant that she could trust implicitly because she had huge themes to do with betrayal. Anyway,
Mm.
so I'm painting a general picture. So when the idea of writing the book all those years later came about, it was 2016, and I was working in Hollywood with 3 leading actresses, and they were saying, do you think we should step forward and should we reveal what Harvey did to us? And I
Oh,
said, yes, of course you have to. And so they said, but we're terrified. So I said, let's create strategy. So we started creating strategy. And one of them, who will remain nameless, of course, said to me, but you worked with Diana. And Diana came in and said, why don't you write the book? The actress said, why don't you write the book? And I could hear Diana laughing. So it took me about 3 months, 4 months. She wrote it. I just
beautiful.
did all of this.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah.
So her heart and soul is in the writing, and
That's
I'm of the conviction of the book was written for the women of the world, not the men and the women, but the women and the men of the world.
yeah.
First, women. So it begins with love and it ends with love,
Yeah.
and it's her.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the experience that I speak out of. So I urge you to start writing when you get back from the vacation with the kids,
Yes.
so
Yes.
that so that it will just flow,
Mhm.
because there evidently is a channel that is very broad in its latitude, and it's intended for your field to get even bigger and big. Sorry, I'm going into a number here, but for your field to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because of the quality of the experience that you're bringing through.
Thank you.
Because although you detonate the ideas as they move through your heart, and you articulate them with great clarity, the point is that people are going to receive the resonance.
Yes. Thank
And
you.
it's a vast field of coherence, a vast field.
Thank you so much. I feel that, and it's been learning. The challenge I had with some of the early stuff that I brought through is she gave it to me experientially. Like there was no words. She showed me and let me see what she was, and let me see like the vision of Yeshua and the vision of her floating in the universe and all. It's like I had to find words for it. But it's really cool to get the recordings back, because I don't always remember what I channel when I channel it, but to get the recordings back from the retreat and to listen and be like, oh my gosh, because and to realize, I could just take that and put it in. So I think it'll be a combination of the two, but I definitely do feel that in bringing it through, that the book will be healing for people. I think it will be very healing for people. And I'm super excited about that.
Vastly, vastly. And I hear other voices coming through for you. I don't know if you're familiar with St. Teresa of Avila.
Oh, interesting.
Or Hildegard von Bingen. These are 2 extraordinary women who were endorsed by Christian mysticism, but they were women who were working through the patriarchy of the established church, both in terms of Protestantism and Catholicism. And they were respected, and they were able to. The reason why I'm really mentioning it is not because of their political history, but they were able to really go deep into the consciousness of the divine feminine.
Mm.
And through the mouthpiece, as it were, of Mary or Mary Magdalene, spoke to them and gave them so much of what the incandescence of this experience that you're having is all about.
Wow.
So, okay, ladies and gentlemen, so look forward. We're recording this in the beginning of November 2025. So at the beginning of 2026, look out. I know, well, unfortunately, we're going to have to finish, that Ryan is about to put Anne's website on the screen. It will be in the notes underneath, of course, as well. So you can see it. There we are.
Thank you, Ryan.
It's that difficult. And it's all spelled correctly and so on and so forth. Anne with an E. Anne with an E.
Yes. Yeah.
And on the behalf of everybody who is tuning into this deep dialogue, as they were in relation to our first deep dialogue, a huge slice of gratitude to you for all of the wonder that is you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It is such a blast to be able to have time to sit down together and just talk about this stuff to kindred spirits. I love it.
Well, bless you. It's a huge feast for me, and I thoroughly enjoy you. But I really wanted you to, to feel the witness and the respect and the appreciation that we all hold you in. Because you're doing a remarkable job, because you are the embodiment of the process. You're a very true, integral embodiment of angelic wisdom. So
thank you so much. That's beautiful. Thank you.
So bless you so much, darling. And I'd love you to stay where you are just for a moment while we close down. And for everybody who's tuned in, this is Stewart Pearce and Anne Tucker. And please do go to the angelsofatlantis.com, as well as going to Anne's site, and you'll see that there's a tremendous amount of tremendous amount of information for you to feed from, to be nourished by. And bless you for tuning in. Namaste, namaste, namaste. Thank you, Ryan.